Hi, I'm Sue Price and I've been practicing homeopathy now for about 15 years. And thanks to technology, I've been able to treat people all over the world. I want to help you learn how you can use homeopathy to help your own family and friends. And I'd like to share some really useful remedies with you. But first, I thought it best to give you a brief bit of homeopathic philosophy to base that knowledge on. Let's start with a quick comparison between homeopathy versus conventional medicine. There are, of course, many differences between what a doctor does and what a homeopath does. But one main difference is that conventional medicine usually treats each organ and system of the body in isolation. So a doctor's main aim is often to get rid of symptoms as quickly as possible, and they see cure as the removal or absence of symptoms. In holistic medicine, and that's not only in homeopathy, we believe that the mind and body are connected, and anything that affects one part of your body influences every other part. So when our system is unbalanced, our body produces symptoms as a cry for help. Now, it's easy to accept this theory when you consider that certain stress might cause you to get a headache, or anxiety might cause loose stools. These are two really common ailments where our emotions can easily be linked to physical symptoms. To summarise then, symptoms are the result of a disturbance within us, and the aim of a homeopath is to rebalance the whole person so that the symptom goes of its own accord, whilst the aim of a doctor would usually be to eliminate the symptom. That's a subtle but a very important difference. So let's have a look at the word homeopathy. Here we see it spelt correctly, and it's derived from those two words, homeos, which means similar, and pathos, which means suffering or disease. The correct name for conventional medicine is actually allopathy, which means opposite and disease. So these two words, similar and suffering, give us the law of similars. Of course, when we remove that second O seen there, which we do, spelt the modern way for homeopathy, it makes the word meaningless. So this law of similars, which homeopathy is based on, let's have a little look at that. In the 18th century, a German doctor called Samuel Hahnemann was unhappy with many of the medical practices of his day, and he started to experiment with some natural substances. He discovered that when a healthy person took a particular substance, they got certain symptoms, but that somebody suffering from similar symptoms could be cured using that substance. Now, this law of similars wasn't a new idea. We have Hippocrates, here he is, from the 5th century. He was a Greek doctor, and he's the one that's considered the father of medicine and the one the Hippocratic Oath is named for. And here we have the Hippocratic Oath. But he suggested that there were two ways of healing, by similars and by opposites. Western medicine adopted and still uses the approach of treating with opposites, but towards the end of his life, Hippocrates actually favoured the law of similars, and homeopathy bases its system of healing on the law of similars. Now, once Hahnemann had experimented and proved this law of similars to himself, he began rigorous trials and research to discover the symptoms that different substances could cause and so heal. So now we have thousands of different remedies in our materia medica, and each year we discover new ones by proving them. However, Hahnemann still had the small problem of knowing how to turn a poisonous substance into a medicine, and eventually the minimum dose was discovered when he found through the process of shaking and bashing the substance, and it somehow imprinted the energy of the original substance into the liquid so that it continued to have the medicinal effect, but the toxic effects disappeared during this dilution process. So, as we can see here, put that up a little bit early. First, the substance is made into a tincture and diluted in water or alcohol. So let's take arnica as our example. The arnica plant would be ground and made into a tincture using an alcoholic solution. 1 drop of this solution is placed into a base solution at a ratio of 99:1. That's 99 parts base liquid and 1 drop of the arnica solution. And it's then succussed, which is that vigorous shaking and banging I told you about. And it's succussed 100 times. We call this potentization. And if I did that with the arnica 100 times with the 1 drop, it would be called a 1C remedy. And I've never given anybody a 1C remedy. So this potentization happens again and again, always using 1 drop of the previous mixture and adding it to 99 drops of a clear base solution. And once you've done that 12 times, we would call that 12C. When you see that C after the remedy, it just tells you that they've used this centesimal scale when they potentize. And by the time a substance has reached a 12C potency, it's proven that there's none of the original substance to be found in the liquid that you now have. There is, however, the energetic imprint of the substance there. So commonly I give remedies at 30C, 200C or 1M, which means it's been succussed and diluted 1,000 times. Because the more you dilute the substance, the stronger the remedy gets, and that is only due to the succussion, which is a major part of it. So let's look at how this law of similars might work in practice. To treat insomnia, a medical doctor might prescribe a sedative to make you drowsy. They are looking for something opposite to your problem to counteract it. However, one remedy a homeopath might consider for insomnia is a remedy made from coffee. Now we know that coffee is a stimulant and it can actually cause insomnia, but because of the law of similars, the minute amount used in a homeopathic remedy and the way it is used, it actually treats insomnia, and that rule goes throughout homeopathy. We can see in another example that a cold which makes your eyes run and sting might be helped by a remedy made from an onion. And allium cepa, which is Latin for red onion, is a remedy which is really good for some colds. Now, just by the way, remedies always use their Latin names. So we are looking for symptoms which are caused by a substance and then confirming that same substance will cause those same symptoms. So very superficially, if you took some arsenic now, which I don't recommend, what do you think would happen to you? Here we are. I'd suggest from the meagre bit of research I've done is that you'd get very sick, you'd vomit, you'd perhaps get diarrhea, you'd feel cold and very uncomfortable, and you might even start being a bit anxious that you are going to die. Arsenicum is in fact a great remedy for food poisoning or upset tummies. It's a very fussy and fastidious remedy and a very good remedy for someone dying or anxious about dying and needing to control their environment. Now we'll learn more about that remedy and about how all remedies have a physical symptom picture, such as the stomach symptoms found here in arsenicum, and the mental and emotional picture, such as anxiety and a fear of dying, are also found in this remedy. Now before we continue, I want to stress that there is a huge difference between giving someone a dose of arsenic, however small, and giving them a homeopathic remedy made from arsenic. Many of the substances used as homeopathic remedies are very toxic when they're used in that crude form. So let's talk a bit about provings, which is how we find out what a remedy is good for. So, yes, we find out what a remedy will heal from a proving. And provings have consistently happened since Hahnemann's time. They are carried out very carefully by a group of healthy volunteers who take 1 dose or perhaps more doses, depending on the proving and what the person doing the proving would like you to do. And then all symptoms, both physical and emotional or mental, are logged in great detail, and the information is then very carefully assessed. Remember that by taking a remedy that isn't aimed at you personally, you will invariably get some of the symptoms of that remedy. They are usually mild and temporary unless you continue taking it for a long time. Some more serious symptoms are never discovered in a proving. Nobody volunteering for a proving would want to develop cancer or MS or any other serious pathology, obviously. So the more serious symptoms are discovered and confirmed later in practice. Now, if I take a remedy that's not suited to me, I will often get strange dreams. That's usually the first signal I know that this remedy isn't a perfect match. Sometimes I've felt down for a day or two, and once I got a wart on one of my fingers, and I've had a few other odd little things. But somehow when a group of people start taking part in a proving, the effect seems to be amplified. Now, depending on your point of view, you might believe that the energy is greater with many people joining together with such good intentions. Or you might just think that people are paying much greater attention to how they're feeling over the next few weeks, and so they notice these things. Often we do notice nothing if we take a remedy which isn't well suited to us, but we would notice something if we continue to take a badly suited remedy. I was taught at college that when a remedy finds nothing curative to do, it eventually causes mischief. I've taken part in 3 provings. That's a really fascinating process. So as well as knowledge from provings, which eventually turns into a list of symptoms in our homeopathic remedies, there are other ways that a homeopath can decide that a remedy will match you and your symptoms. We listen to the way you talk and express yourself, how your problems affect you, and a host of other things. So that really takes me onto acute and constitutional prescribing. Let's have a look at that. First, a constitutional remedy. Now, you will usually need a homeopath to find this for you. And it changes. It's not that you will get one constitutional remedy and that's it for life, or even years sometimes. Bear in mind there are thousands of remedies to choose from, and even if you manage to discover the remedy on your own, you'd likely need a homeopath to guide you on the strength of the remedy you need, how often to repeat it, and just what the different reactions mean. But we also have acute prescribing, and that's for many common ailments like colds, fractures, sprains, burns, childhood ailments such as chickenpox or measles, childbirth, labour, hay fever. It's a long, long list. And with just a little bit of knowledge and practice, you can become pretty good at prescribing for yourself and your family and really helping them. I would recommend using 30C or 200C potencies for most acute problems and repeating as often as you need to and whilst the remedy is helping. As a rough rule, if you match a remedy to your symptoms and take it a couple of times without it helping, I'd advise you don't repeat it again, however well you think it matches, because the remedy is probably wrong and you need to find a new remedy. With acute prescribing, remember, unlike with a constitutional prescription, you might need to take that and repeat that remedy quite often at first, even half-hourly for something quite painful and serious like a burn or a fracture. And the rule is only to continue taking it whilst it's helping. There are some great homeopathic little first aid books out there and homeopathic kits which contain information. So you don't have to remember every symptom and every remedy. You just have to be aware where to go and find it, and that will be found in your little homeopathic first aid book. Many, if not all, of the remedies can be used for both acute and constitutional prescribing. Arsenicum's a good example of that one. It's used very successfully for both. And I'll look at that remedy in greater detail in the next video. So a homeopath's duty is to prescribe towards the largest meaningful and appropriate totality that we can see. So if we're treating conjunctivitis, that's fine, as long as the aim for now is to just treat the conjunctivitis, and we know that. It'd be very inappropriate to have a patient come to me with a list of chronic problems, but they also have conjunctivitis, and I just decide to only treat the conjunctivitis. In an acute prescription, which is what you're looking to do, we're not looking to match the remedy on such a deep level. We are basically matching it to the symptoms of the problem that you have now, symptoms that are right in your face. And you can see here somebody just helping a man who presumably has had a box fallen on them. And she would not be asking such silly questions as this. She would be thinking, oh my goodness, he's concussed, he's had a bang on his head, likely needs a dose of arnica or something else, and not shaking him to ask him silly questions that we ask in a long constitutional consultation. So, one thing that is very good with acute consultations, if we call it that, and obviously she can't do this with this guy lying on the floor, is you find out why it's happened, when it happened, what makes you feel better or worse, what we call modalities, you know, is it better when it's hot, better when it's cold, better in the morning, worse in the evening. The more details you can get about the particular problem, the more confidently you can prescribe a remedy which will help. Now, this has been a really brief introduction to some homeopathic philosophy, and in the next video I'd like to start looking at some remedies in detail and help you have confidence in choosing one that will help with some common complaints. Though I thought we'd do those 4 there on the screen. Thank you for listening, and if there's anything you'd like to know about, do let me know so that I can include it in a future video.